Serving Amherst and Amherst Township, your hometown television station, Amherst City Cable.
We're meeting of the Finance Committee to order at 7:23. We have one item on the agenda, A15-27, take attendance. Mr. Bukovac.
Here.
Mr. Goodell.
Here.
Mr. Janik.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Present.
Mr. Van Truen.
Here.
Mr. Winarski.
Here.
And the chair is present. All members of the administration are here also. We have one item, A15-27, a resolution authorizing the city to pick up statutorily required contribution to OPERS for all employees of the city through salary reduction method pursuant to IRC, Section 414H2, and declaring an emergency. This was submitted by Mr. Pecora, the law director. Mr. Pecora, would you care to comment?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Silk. As council's aware, we passed a resolution, I think a month ago, pertaining to the same subject matter when PERS had contacted, or we became aware from our PERS contact that our withholding was contrary to what we had stated how we would withhold the PRS contributions back in 2004. So we had passed a resolution regarding that as it pertains to all employees versus just the non-bargaining unit employees. So PERS needed us to pass a resolution stating, again, all employees who fall under PERS, that their retirement contributions would be taken out pre-tax. And prior to that, at least for a portion of our employees, we had not been doing so. We cleaned up the ordinance and passed a resolution a month ago or so, and PERS saw the language and wanted an actual effective date. So what we've done is we've set forth a new resolution, which has actually been approved by PERS with an effective date of, I think, July 19, 2015. Our previous language said it was effective the earliest date available because it was not passed on an emergency. Basically, it's effective 30 days after the mayor signs. So because of that clerical error, PERS requested a new resolution be passed with a specific date, which we discussed with PERS would be July 19, 2015. The reason for that is because we don't want to be mid-pay. We want to make sure that its effective date commences with the proper pay period, which we've decided was the 19th of July, and that's how we're handling that. Also, we wanted to notify the employees, the non-bargaining unit employees, that since PERS has become aware of how we were withholding the PRS contributions since 2004, that they would like us to, they're going to take steps to recategorize how some of those contributions will be reflected from their department, from their entity. So essentially, because we can amend tax returns back 3 years, PERS is going to retroactively recategorize your PERS contributions for 2014, 13, and 12 and make them pre-tax. So again, prior to this, we've been contributing to the PERS post-tax. PERS is now going to recategorize at least 3 years, in fact only 3 years, as pre-tax, and it's going to cause us to reissue W-2s for the employees that have been affected for years 2014, 13, and 12. We'll be sending a more detailed notice to the employees and people who are affected by this with more detail and what our thoughts are. So.
Okay, but the major change, other than there are two things I take away from what you're saying, is that this particular resolution has a specific date in the resolution, the legislation,
right, exactly,
an implementation date. And this particular legislation was reviewed and approved by the PERS person down in Columbus.
Correct. In drafting this and working with the auditors department, I think Gwen actually called, the assistant auditor called PERS and actually sent it to them for their review, and she confirmed with me that it was acceptable to PERS and with the 19th of July date. So
I really appreciate all you've done, Mr. Pecora. Mr. Miller?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to take A15-27 to the floor and declare an emergency.
Mr. Miller? Mr. Winarski?
I'll second with a quick question, if I may.
Absolutely.
The original legislation that PERS was none too fond of, that didn't have the specific date, do we need to do anything, or is it just wither on the vine without a signature?
we'll supersede that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it. Thanks.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, roll call vote. Mr. Bukovac?
Yes.
Mr. Goodell?
Yes.
Mr. Janik?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Van Trulen?
Yes.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Motion is carried 7-0. That is all I have, Mr. Bukovac. Mr. Winarski?
Second.
There is a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. We are adjourned at 7:29.
Good job.
Roll call. Roll call.
Roll call, and and I was thinking I gotta make sure I got it right.
Internal Revenue Code.
Check the wrong box.
Okay.
Internal Revenue.
You have to, we adding this on?
It's right here. Oh, it's on your new one. Did I give you the?
No, you didn't give me a new one.
Did you get the new agenda with the added item?
You got this?
No.
I'm sure I have
Thank you.
it. It's right there.
Has everybody got their things? Everybody ready? June 22nd, regular meeting of Amherst City Council will come to order. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Wasilk.
Here.
Mr. Winarski.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Present.
Mr. Janik.
Here.
Mr. Bukovac.
Here.
Mr. Goodell.
Here.
Mr. Van Truren.
We'll stand for the prayer by Chaplain Silk and remain standing for the pledge of flag by Sergeant Irish Bukovac.
Will you bow with me, please? Gracious God of all peoples, grant us wisdom, patience, and understanding. Keep us ever mindful of what you judge to be good and what you require of us. To act justly, to do what is right, to be merciful, and to walk humbly during the time we have here on earth. We thank you that you are the God of all people, every man, every woman, every child, every creed, every race, and every color. And now may the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Move on to item 4, the consent agenda.
Minutes of the regular council meeting held June 8th, 2015. Minutes of the Finance Committee meeting held June 15th and 22nd, 2015. Minutes of the Police and Fire Committee meeting held June 15th, 2015. Minutes of the executive session held June 15th, 2015.
Ms. Basil.
Yes, I would like to point out an error that I made in the minutes. It specifies that in the printed minutes that there was a voice vote. I checked the wrong box, that's my error. That was a roll call vote, and I would like you to amend that. And with that amendment, I move to accept these minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Bernard.
I'll second that, please.
There's motion and second on the floor to accept the consent agenda as amended. Any questions? Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Wasilk?
Yes.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Janik?
Yes.
Mr. Bukovac?
Yes.
Mr. Goodell?
Yes.
Mr. Van Kuren?
Yes.
Motion carries. Move on to item 5, acknowledgment of the public pertaining to items on tonight's agenda. Anyone wishing to speak on anything? Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to welcome Jeffrey and his father to council here, Troop 427. You're working at your Eagle Scout? Fantastic. Good luck, and if we can help you, let us know. Thank you. That's it, Mr. President.
Thank you. Anyone else? Move on to item 6, ordinances and resolutions. First reading, item A.
A resolution adopting the Lorraine County Multi-Jurisdictional Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Mr. Goodell.
I'd like to make a motion to take item 6A to the second reading.
Mr. Miller.
Second, please.
Motion is second on the floor to take item A onto the second reading. Any comments? Roll call vote.
Mrs. Wasilk?
Yes.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
Winarski. Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Janik?
Yes.
Mr. Bukovac?
Yes.
Mr. Goodell?
Yes.
Mr. Van Kuren?
Motion is accepted, 7-0. Item B.
A resolution authorizing the sale through the calendar year 2019 of municipally owned personal property which is not needed for public use or which is obsolete or unfit for the use for which it was acquired by internet auction pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 721.15D.
Mr. Goodell.
I'd like to make a motion to take item 6B to the second reading.
Thank you. Mr. Miller.
Second, please.
Motion is second on the floor to take item B onto the second reading. Are there any comments? Roll call vote.
Mrs. Wasilk?
Yes.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Janik?
Yes.
Mr. Bukovac?
Yes.
Mr. Goodell?
Yes.
Mr. Van Kuren?
Motion carries. Move on to item C.
An ordinance authorizing the Safety Service Director to sell through the calendar year 2019 municipally owned personal property, the estimated value of which is $1,000 or more that is not needed for public use or which is obsolete or unfit for the use for which it was acquired by internet auction.
Mr. Winarski.
I'd like to ask that this be sent for a second reading.
Thank you. Mr. Goodell.
Second.
Motion is second on the floor to send item C onto the second reading. Are there any comments? Roll call vote.
Mrs. Wasilk?
Yes.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Janik?
Yes.
Mr. Bukovac?
Yes.
Mr. Goodell?
Yes.
Mr. Van Kuren?
Yes.
Motion carries. Move on to item D.
A resolution authorizing the City of Amherst to pick up the statutorily required contribution to the Ohio Public Employees Retirement System for the employees of the city through the salary reduction method pursuant to Internal Revenue Code, Section 414H2, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to ask that 6D be suspended, council rules suspended, and be passed on the first reading, declaring an emergency as well.
Thank you. Mr. Van Kuren.
Second.
Motion is second on the floor to suspend council rules on item D, so may be passed on the first reading. Any comments? Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Wasilk?
Yes.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Janik?
Yes.
Mr. Bukovac?
Yes.
Mr. Goodell?
Yes.
Mr. Van Kuren?
Mr. Winarski.
Motion to adopt.
Mr. Janik.
Second.
Motion is second on the floor to adopt. Roll call vote.
Mrs. Wasilk?
Yes.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Janik?
Yes.
Mr. Bukovac?
Yes.
Mr. Goodell?
Yes.
Mr. Van Kuren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
It's Resolution R-1503.
On item 7, ordinances and resolutions, second reading. We have none. Move on to item 8, ordinances and resolutions, third reading. We have none. Move on to item 9, miscellaneous, acknowledgement of the public. Anyone here wishing to speak on any item? If not, we'll move on to item 10, agenda requests and committee meeting schedules.
I have three, Mr. President. The first is A-15. It will go to finance, and the subject is a resolution for estimate resources for the 2016 tax budget with emergency. The next is Agenda A 15-29 for the Recycling Committee, a resolution to adopt the solid waste management plan for the Lorraine County Solid Waste Management District. And the final one is A 1530 for Building and Lands, and it's O-15-18, the emergency clause per the attached email. That's complete.
Thank you. Finance, Ms. Vasselli.
I have one item as read, A 15-28, resolution for estimate resources for the 2016 tax budget and declaring an emergency. I'd like to call that for 7 o'clock on the 6th of July.
July 6th. Thank you, Ms. Vasselli.
And that is complete.
Thank you. Building and Lands, Mr. Winarski.
Got one item, A 15-30, to amend O 1518 as described by the clerk. I'd like to ask that be assigned July 6th, and I'm flexible, be it after the recycling meeting or after finance is fine with me.
Thank you. Is that complete?
That's complete, yes.
Streets, Mr. Buchbeck.
No items, please cancel.
Thank you. Development, Mr. Jennings.
Two announcements, Mr. President. The Amherst Community Task Force is hosting a swim pool party for high school students this Friday from 6 to 9 p.m. at Maud Needing Park. And then there will be a spaghetti fundraiser for Jacob Heberling this Sunday, 11:30 to 7 p.m. Suggested donations are $10 for adults, $5 for children. If anyone does not know Jacob's story, he needs a heart transplant. He is 9 years old and is a member of the Red Wings baseball team for the Amherst Athletic Association, who is sponsoring the event. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jennings. Executive, Mr. Goodell.
Nothing at this time, Mr. President. Please cancel.
Thank you. Ordinance, Mr. Miller.
No items, please cancel, Mr. President.
Thank you. Utilities, Mr. Miller.
No items as well, Mr. President, please cancel.
Thank you. Recycle, Mr. Jennings.
As read, Mr. President, we have A-15-29, a resolution to adopt the solid waste management plan for the Lorraine County Solid Waste Management District. Calling that meeting for 7:20.
Thank you.
That is complete.
Technology, Mr. Buchbeck.
Technology Committee has no items, please cancel.
Thank you. Police and Fire, Mr. Pancher.
I don't have anything, please cancel.
Thank you. That completes item 11, or 10. We'll move on to item 11, Reports Administration.
Mr. Ramsey,
No report this evening.
Mr. Kakuga,
Just that we'll be having our closing audit meeting with our auditors on Monday the 29th at 3:30. They are completing our annual audit, so once that's published, we'll get that over to the council and report.
thank you, Mr. Pecora.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Costello.
No report, thank you.
I just have one item. Dave, on that recycling committee meeting on July 6th, the plan is that thick. So I didn't print it for everyone, but it's in my office, and anyone who wants to read it and come in and look at it, the plan is in my office, and if there's any part of it you would want copies for, we would make them, but it's just too thick to copy everybody. So if you want, welcome to come and look at it prior to the meeting. End of report, Mr. President.
Thank you. You need a couple hours to look at it. Mr. Self.
I have one question.
Yes.
Mr. Auditor, is that meeting, the closing meeting, a public meeting? Okay. I move to accept the reports of the administration.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
Second, please.
Motion and second on the floor to accept the reports of administration. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Reports are accepted. Mr. Miller?
Move to adjourn.
Mr. Van Kuren? Motion and second on the floor to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We are adjourned at 7:48.
Our town, our TV. Amherst City Cable.